Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and hi. My name is TENGKU NAJIHAH BINTI TENGKU Hamid and my metric number is D2018-208-6667 and this is my video presentation. In my opinion, material designs and adaptations are very important to both the teacher and the student. This is because when the teacher designs the material and adapt the material, the teacher would find out which material would fit with the students. This is said so because there are many different types of learners that can be found in the classroom. There are learners that prefer to see the visual, like the teacher can draw or the teacher can use the whiteboard. There are learners that prefer to read instead, and there are also learners that prefer to listen when they learn. Reflecting back my time as a secondary school student, there was a lesson that I enjoyed the most. It was when we had a play. I enjoyed it a lot because I had to act out as the character and I found it to be much more joyful than the normal lesson. As a trainee teacher, there are a few unique skills and abilities that I have, which are I am able to draw and dance and sing. In the future, I could use these abilities and skills to enhance my teaching and creating the materials for the future use of my classroom. As we all know, all students are different, so I could either use my ability to sing with them or dance with them, or I could also draw and visualize my own materials because I know my student the most. So, I could create the materials that would fit their preference and would make them comfortable in learning. Also, out of all language skills that we have, I am most interested in speaking skill. However, speaking skill is typically taught at the school only by reading out loud. And the material that the teacher would use is written text, or the student only have to read the books. However, I strongly disagree with this method. It is because I found this method to be very boring and it does not allow the student to be creative in their thinking and they only have to read out loud, which doesn't allow their creativity. In my opinion, the best materials that could be used to teach speaking skill is by the use of mahjong paper. It is because by using mahjong paper, I could create many types of materials. Just as Tom Limson said, the materials should be variety because there are different types of students. And when I know what kind of materials that my students prefer, they could prefer the illustration, they could prefer colors. So by using the mahjong paper, I could do those. I could create a picture and ask the student to discuss about the picture on the mahjong paper. And I also could provide the mahjong paper for the students, for them to brainstorm their ideas on the mahjong paper and to speak out to present their ideas. Also, by using the mahjong paper, I could ask them to create the character that they love. And instead of using the normal book, which are very small and the texts are very tiny and it is very scripted, I could create my own story, my own ideas on the mahjong paper, and the font will also be bigger than textbooks or than the novels. So I think that the student would find it much more enjoyable because according to Tom Linson, the materials should not only be variety, it should also be attractive. So I could use colors, I could use images that I could draw on the mahjong paper so that the student would find the content to be very appealing to them. And they are able to express themselves. So, by creating the material that would fit the student's preference and would allow them to use their own creativity and would be much more make them feel comfortable in learning, I think that this is the best material for me to use when I teach listening. So, that is all for my video presentation. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is FARHANI and this video is my reflective video. So let's start now. In my opinion, material design and adaptation are crucial because it is the way to create meaningful language learning experiences for the students. So, in short, it gives memorable experiences that they will remember forever. So, apart from that, designing and adapting our own material will make sure that the materials prepared are suitable to all students' proficiency level and also cater to students' learning style. So, materials design should allow students to utilize the target language and make them feel comfortable. So, eventually, the importance of designing and adapting the materials is for teacher to fulfill the students' needs so that the materials are beneficial for their learning. The most memorable lesson for me was when I was in Form 1, was during a role play activity. So we needed to act out a story entitled Sheep. I have to act as one of the sheep and we prepared the mask individually a day before the lesson. We were also given time to memorize the script before doing the role play. It was quite memorable for me because I get to sing, to act, and enjoy. I enjoy the lesson without feeling any pressure, and it was also quite memorable because due to uh, the background music and also the picture for every scene, it made the story more alive, and it was quite fun.
One of my hidden abilities is that I can sing a little bit. So maybe I would record my own singing and insert it in the video or do the narration or recitation of poetry. Besides, since I also can draw a little bit, probably I could include my illustration, for instance, in samples of comic strips or in the worksheet, because sometimes we have to pay for premium access when using online software, so it kinds of limit the items and pictures that we can use. So, therefore, we can't produce the materials as exactly as we want. For reading skill, as I remember during my school time, we did a lot of read aloud or silent reading activities. Then my teacher will ask some question regarding the reading text and we'll have to answer some worksheet or do some mind map. And for materials, my teacher usually will use the passage in the textbook or articles from newspapers, magazines, and workbooks. It is a good approach, but for me, I don't prefer to read the passage and answer the worksheet or question written on the whiteboard all the time because I tend to get bored easily. So this approach seems plain to me and makes the lesson less interesting if it is repeated many times. Therefore, I prefer to do more interactive activities and have different text types. To make it more effective, we should refer to various sources. For example, we should refer to materials online, or we could use a real postcards, invitation cards, and storybooks because this type of materials have attractive colors and have a lot of illustration in it. Thus, it is more attractive for the students. And if the topic is about traveling, we could use postcards instead of plain informal letters. And if we design it just like the real postcards, the students will be more interested in the materials and the lesson itself. So, based on the postcards, we can do a pop quiz or answer questions using online platforms like quizzes or do interactive activities such as information gap.
Assalamualaikum and hi. My name is UMAIRAH binti FAUZI and I am from Tesl B. The purpose of creating this video is to answer the questions listed related to the Tomlinson's principles about material development in language teaching. In my opinion, materials design and adaptation are very important in contributing to teaching and learning session. Having good materials can smoothen out the teaching and learning session. It is also mattering how the teacher adapts the material, especially contents from the textbooks. Teachers are constantly adapting the materials to fit the learner's need, their knowledge background, and in some way, the materials have to facilitate learners in using the target language better. Other than that, some materials contain cultural sensitivity which is not so appropriate to be used when the teachers know the student's background. Sometimes, the activity provided can be conducted because learners cannot relate with the examples given from the materials provided. Therefore, it is important for teachers to always check upon the materials before making some changes that suits the learners. Teachers spend most of their time to provide only the best materials for the students by designing their own materials. I really enjoyed the lesson when my teachers play a movie or a short film. I don't really remember the specific lesson, but it was something the teachers did for fun in order to expose us to English. I love the elements of visuals and audio presented since I totally had my focus upon that activity. From that, I encouraged myself to watch more English movies with English subtitles instead of Malay to expand my vocabulary and listening skills. To be very honest, I am not sure what skills or abilities I have since I haven't been exposed in a real classroom environment. However, I can consider myself as creative when creating or designing materials on my own. Here are a few examples of materials I have created for the activities required during the past lesson plan activities. This is because speaking skills in language learning is the hardest to achieve because learners need to practice a lot longer than writing, since most basic learners cannot express what they have in mind in the target language. They know the rules, they listen well, they know the words, but somehow it's hard for them to convey their thoughts in a discourse on the spot. I do admit that to speak in the target language, I used to process few things and think about the sentences in my native language first before relaying what I want to say. It's like my brain needs to load for a while, and that makes me realize I need to work on this matter more. As someone who grows up in suburban area with most of the one I interacted with didn't speak English, it was really hard for me to acquire the speaking skills. When I was in high school, my teacher didn't really use any specific materials to teach speaking since he focused more on conducting activities that will let the students to speak more. My teacher used to give me certain topics or situation and ask me to speak out my opinion. He also let me play games or do a role play from a drama I learned. That way, I can communicate with my classmates and produce conversation with them when doing the activities. However, most of them didn't really use English to speak when doing tasks. Looking back of what my teacher did, I kind of agree with his approach, but I don't see much impact of the activities to help me go learn the language properly. In my opinion, to teach speaking, printed materials such as newspapers, articles, or magazine can be helpful to teach speaking skills. Aside from that, anything that has visuals elements like picture sequencing, posters, pictures, or maps are also welcome. Materials related to audio are also effective to teach speaking skills since speaking involves listening process. Honestly, speaking skills is one of the skills that can collaborate with reading and listening skills because each of the skills can lead to speaking skills.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello to Dr. Farah. I am NOOR Izatiaini binti HISHAMLIZA. My metric number is D2018-208-6673 and I am from Group B. So this is my reflection video. So let's check it out. In my opinion, I can say that materials design and adaptation play the most crucial part in language teaching and learning. This is because, in order to attract and get the students' attention to focus and interested with the lesson, teacher needs to ensure that the materials designed and adapted are beneficial and suit them. Of course, to have an eye-catching material is a bonus, but the highlight from it is that the materials designed and adapted functions well and the students can get the benefits from the material use. As for instance, if a teacher use a video and worksheet as the materials, so the questions or contents asked in the worksheet have to be related with the content of the video, and teachers have to ensure that the materials design is not only eye-catching and attractive, but students can get input from it. During my school years, most of my teachers during primary and secondary school like to present and engage the students with visual and auditory materials, and I recall that I was really enjoying myself as a student at that time and seldom get bored during the lesson. This is because my teachers will always provide the students with interesting videos and audios in the class. There were a lot of memories during my school years, but there was one lesson that I still remember clearly. It was during a literature class where my English teacher wanted to teach the students about a poem entitled He Had Such a Quiet Eyes. She used a projector and designed a really eye-catching figures, and we were in a computer lab at that time. Then she changed the mood of the room by making it darker for us to feel the message of the poem. It was a memorable lesson for me because she made a good use of technology by resemble the figures in the poem nicely, and as we all know, it is not an easy job to teach a really deep poem to students because they might not understand about the message in it, but I think my teacher did well, and it is very memorable one for me because the materials aspects, the audio that she used, and the environment that she created to make us able to feel the emotion and the feelings of the poet. I am really enthusiastic in making materials, and I found myself as a creative person. Creative here is not that I am able to draw a beautiful portrait or anything, but in terms of finding the ideas and creating teaching materials and interesting lesson, I think I have that abilities. Other than that, I was once a diploma in Tesl student from UNIZA and had gone through a teaching training as a primary school teacher, and I found myself to enjoy being busy with planning the lesson, handling the students and preparing the materials. Even though at some point it was stressful, but whenever I finished designing then brought my materials to class, I felt relief and appreciated because my students really enjoy and attracted with the materials. So I think I can use my creativeness and my thinking ability to create attractive materials such as big books, pop-up books, creative videos, and so on. I am interested in reading skills because for me this is one of the skills that teachers can be creative in creating the materials, and there are a lot of ways to teach these skills. Teaching reading skill can be done in varieties of teaching methods and approaches. From what I have experienced and observed, reading skill has typically been taught in a traditional method of simply reading the text individually or aloud, repeating or following what teachers read or read in pairs with the peers. And sadly, materials that have been used are textbook or other black and white reading text from the exercise book. Then, to check their comprehension, the materials used are usually MCQ questions from the textbook or exercise book, true or false questions, fill in the blanks, and everything. This usually happen when a senior teacher teach the lesson. They will just read the textbook and photocopy the exercises or reading text from somewhere else. And I don't agree with the approach because this approach may result in the loss of interest among students. Students will also feel demotivated and they might think that English is not fun as what has been voiced out as the trademark all this while. Also, this approach shows that how dedicated does the teacher is towards the lesson, and it shows that how care she or he is towards the student's achievement and all. The way the teacher teach will reveal everything and can be evaluated by other people too. In my opinion, as a teacher, we need to find ways on how to make our lesson interesting and interactive, especially when teaching the reading skills where the students might feel bored and sleepy during the lesson. One of the ways is obviously to come out with eye-catching materials such as moving reading text that can be designed and created in the Powtoon, Canva, or make it a comic version in Pixton. Other than that, if the lesson is about fairy tales or anything that relates to story, teachers can come out with big book or 3D pop-up storybook and more. Other than that, if as a teacher you still want to use the reading text from the textbook, you can adapt it and transfer the information into brochures, posters, mind maps, or infographics. There are a lot of ways to teach reading skill. Do not limit ourselves and be creative. That's all from me.
That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is ASMA MARDHIYYAH binti Muhammad ARIFFIN with metric number D201820866676, and this is my reflective video regarding our assignment 1. So, without further ado, let's answer a few questions, shall we? How important are materials design and adaptation? Yes, it is very important because first, it is a process and journey for the teachers to get to know the students. Just like Tomlinson's principle, before we develop a material, we should know our students, their learning styles. We need to make sure the materials are comfortable with them. We're not touching any sensitive issues, and we need to relate the materials and the topic with their culture. So automatically, it is also one way for the teachers to get to know the students. Okay, and when we already covered all of this aspect, I am sure we can adapt it and give impact to the students and give effective learning to the students. The next question is to reflect back on my secondary time and recall a lesson that I enjoyed the most and what aspects of the lesson made it a memorable lesson. Okay, so I really love reading poems and presentation in front of the class because it kind of gives me confidence when I speak in front of the classes. And to be honest, maybe it is just me that love to bragging out my speaking skills in front of my friends. And what I love about it, because I will get praises from the teachers, I will get praises from my friends, and sometimes rewards as well. Moving on to the next question is, as a teacher trainee, what unique skills or abilities do I have? So I can play piano, singing, dancing, and making interactive videos. So in what way can I use this to enhance my teaching and materials used in my future English language classroom? I hope it can arouse my students' attention, and I hope it can make the learning much more fun. Next is language skill that I'm most interested in is speaking skills, because I'm not sure why, but I love to speak because it doesn't require me to listen to person. It doesn't mean to write a lot of essay. I don't need a good vocabularies or flourish vocabularies. As long as I can convey what do I want to say, then that is good enough of what I want. So, how has this particular skill been typically taught at schools? And well, in my class, I have always need to presenting in front of the class, like read the poem, and if sometimes the teacher give me a mahjong paper to work with it. But basically that is just that. And now I recalling, I think I did not get great opportunities to speak a lot in my school. So next is, do I agree with this approach? Yes, but I wish it could be better. Last but not least, what types of materials are most effective to teach this skill? I would love if it could be in YouTube videos, role play, or social media, because I think Generation Z right now, they love a lot social media. So why not, instead of they just Instagramming while learning, right? So yeah, that is my opinion. So that's all for today. Thank you.